Hey everyone, I'm Spoony Bard, and I want to show you my collection of Batman trade paperbacks and hardcover graphic novels. Now, I like to organize my collection based off of the in-universe timeline. I know some people might want to group it all by title, but I like sort of knowing what takes place when in the greater scheme of what's going on with the Bat family, even though it might look like a colorful mess on the shelf. Leave a comment if you agree with the way I organize this, or tell me how you would do it. Anyways, let's get into my favorite stuff. Batman RIP is, I think, Grant Morrison's best work on the character. They had already added so much to the mythos, like the League of Assassins getting an army of Man-Bat, to obviously Damian being one of the big things. This was a cool storyline because essentially after all this stuff that Grant Morrison had been putting the character through, Batman was finally sort of in a vulnerable state. So Grant Morrison created a whole new team of rogues that were targeting Batman called the Black Glove. Their goal was basically to completely break him, which they actually managed to do. But of course, this being Batman's book, he manages to crawl his way back out of the gutter and defeat them all. Some people were annoyed that despite the title being RIP, Batman doesn't actually, in quotes, die in this storyline. Rather, this is kind of setting up for the final crisis event where he does, in quotes, die. But I'm not one of those people. I thought this story worked great on its own. You can view his death as being like when the Black Glove actually sort of breaks him down, physically and mentally. But then, of course, he rebuilds himself stronger than ever. Anyway, I didn't like Final Crisis, and I didn't like Batman Incorporated. I haven't read The Death of Damian, but this is probably my favorite Batman story written by Grant Morrison. The Black Mirror is one of Scott Snyder's works on Batman prior to the New 52. This is set after Final Crisis, so Batman is gone. And Nightwing, Dick Grayson, is the new Batman with Damian as his Robin. I'm not going to say anything more about this story other than you guys really should track it down and read it. This might actually be one of my favorite Batman stories of all time. The art is just amazing and it fits the tone of the story so well. I guess all you really need to know is it's Scott Snyder on Batman. And speaking of pre New 52 Scott Snyder Batman, here we have the limited series Batman Gates of Gotham. He co wrote this with Kyle Higgins, who I believe wrote the entire New 52 run of Nightwing. The story follows two narratives. The first one is with Dick Grayson as Batman, who's fighting some new rogue that's appeared on the scene threatening Gotham. And the other one, and this is the part that I think is really cool about this story, it's set in like the late 1800s or early 1900s. Before Gotham was built, it deals kind of with the four founding families of Gotham. And you get to learn a little bit of the history there. I think this stuff is cool, and I think it's definitely what led to the New 52's All Star Western reboot. It's a great read. It's definitely not necessary, but it just enhances the whole world building that Scott Snyder was working on over his many years long run with the character. I didn't actually realize this till I sat down to record this, but this is actually the third Scott Snyder Batman book in a row. So how about going forward, we just say anything written by him on this character is probably going to be on one of my favorite stories list. So I'll just represent it with this volume, the Court of Owls, New 52. It's volume one. I think it's probably how a lot of people sort of got on board with him as the writer. And I mean, it's a phenomenal run. Next up is a New 52 kind of reimagining, redesign of the Penguin. It's a miniseries called Penguin Pain and Prejudice. It's written by Greg Hurwitz, and he picked up a storyline that Jason Aaron had in a miniseries called Batman Joker's Asylum, wherein we find out exactly how vicious the Penguin can be. He won't just kill you, he'll ruin the lives of the people around you. Your parents will have their house foreclosed on and they'll be homeless. Your brother will get hit with a drunk driving charge and be falsely imprisoned. All kinds of things. He wants the people around you to suffer before you do. Jason Aaron and Greg Hurwitz really transformed this character, and it can be seen in these pages. I definitely feel like the character went from being kind of more of a joke to being like an A-level threat for Batman, especially because he kind of operates within the law as a club owner. Finally, I got Frank Miller's Batman The Dark Knight Returns. This is probably one of the most defining Batman stories there ever was, and that's a good and a bad thing. Um, the story itself is really good. The art is amazing. You could tell Frank Miller spent a lot of time on this. Just all around an incredible interpretation of the character. However, the thing that I hated about this is not the story itself, but the influence that this had on generations of writers afterwards. Everybody started going with this kind of grim and gritty, edgy Batman thing. I never really saw the character that way. To me, he was always supposed to be like a symbol of hope. Here's somebody that had his parents murdered in front of him, and his goal was to go out there and make sure no other children, no other families had to suffer. I mean, he built himself a family, surrounding himself with sidekicks and children that he adopted and mentored and stuff like that. So this whole concept of, oh, my parents are murdered, I'm just going to go out every night and beat people up, that just, it seems weird. Anyway, these are some of my favorite Batman stories, at least out of the stuff that I own. You can let me know what some of your favorite Batman comic stories were. Otherwise, I hope to see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.